Congratulations to all of our champions and their change makers tonight. Also major love and joy. I'll hand it over one more time to the Queen Priyanka, which I don't know if you know this. You were one of the very first people I came out to back in our college days. Did you know that?
Actually?
Yeah.
What the fuck? That's actually crazy. I was literally about to come up here and give you a shout out for everything you do for lesbians in media. You are so amazing and so iconic. And I have me to thank.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
so
you,
crazy.
everyone. Appreciate it.
Make some noise for Shannon Burns, everybody! That's crazy. Oh my God.
Welcome to Queer Joy, the PTP Pink Awards 2024. My name is Daniel McIver, and this is Episode 1, Genesis. What you just heard was the closing exchange between the two hosts of the inaugural Pink Triangle Press Pink Awards. Literal angel on earth, Shannon Burns from Virgin Radio and CTVZ Talk, and Drag Race royalty, HBO star, recording artist, and Canadian icon, Queen Priyanka. When we realized we would need co-hosts for the event, we reached out separately to Priyanka, who we knew as the superstar that she is, about hosting from the main stage, and to Shannon, who we knew as someone from the queer community who was doing excellent work in the mainstream, to handle the red carpet and the from the floor lift. But it wasn't until we were finalizing details with Shannon that we found out that she and Priyanka had gone to school together and were friends. Well, that was certainly perfect. It was a lovely reminder of how our community works. It's relational and about connectivity and communion. It is a village. That's what it felt like that night in the room at the Pink Awards. The whole community showed up, activists, artists, athletes, business people, philanthropists. It was a lot of people who at one time probably felt outside, who could look around the room and feel very inside something. The night was like our community, a place where nobody ends up by accident. And let me tell you a little bit about how I ended up here. In my regular job, I'm a playwright and performer and sometimes screenwriter and filmmaker, but since 2022, I've been working as a creative content consultant and producer at Pink Triangle Press. I'd been aware of PTP since I arrived in Toronto from Nova Scotia in the early 80s. PTP had formed in 1971 as a collective to publish The Body Politic, a monthly newspaper that is regarded today as a game changer in the queer media landscape. It was a paper of protest and unapologetic demand for queer liberation. And in 1984, as an offshoot of The Body Politic, PTP formed Extra Magazine, more focused on social life and culture, lighter fare, available free in bars. And when The Body Politic closed its operation in 1987, Extra took over as PTP's main publication, mixing arts and culture coverage with harder news stories. There were print editions published out of Toronto, Vancouver, and Ottawa. And in 2015, Extra moved entirely online, where it continues the legacy of the original publication with award-winning journalism that strives to be, as its banner proudly states, queering the conversation. Check them out at extramagazine.com. Because I had known about the important work of PTP through The Body Politic and had much interaction with Extra Magazine over the years through my work in Canadian theatre and film, I was even on the cover a couple of times, I was really excited when the opportunity came about to work with PTP as part of their expansion into advocacy. My job was to make content that would build bridges inside the community and help to frame the community for the mainstream. Of all the work I did, the thing I'm most proud of was helping to produce the inaugural PTP Pink Awards in November of 2024. So what are the Pink Awards? Oh, I'm going to let Priyanka tell you about how they work.
Hi, everybody. My name is Priyanka. What's my name? That's right, motherfuckers. Tonight, we are celebrating. Here's how it's gonna work. We have our 5 amazing champions, and each champion has chosen a change maker, an organization or charity that is meaningful to them, that they believe deserves to be talked about and supported. Now, some of these change makers have been making change for a while, and some of them are brand new baby change makers. But either way, everybody needs to be talked about. And not only talked about, there's cash and money too. I played a stripper in a music video directed by D.W. Watterson, so if you do want to throw dollar bills at me and donate to charity tonight, I'll take it.
We love Priyanka. So the basic foundational idea is pay it forward. The champion was awarded the opportunity to award the title of Changemaker. There had been talk for some years at Extra in the editorial department about awards to celebrate queer achievement, but nothing ever really landed. And then when Jennifer Maguire came on as managing director in 2022, she and PTP CEO David Wahlberg revisited the idea, and Jennifer suggested the pay it forward element, and things really coalesced around that. On the night, David described the context for the awards like this.
We find ourselves in a moment where it's very clear how ignorance and fear can so easily be weaponized against our community. That weaponizing has become a political tactic for those who are determined to impose their limited worldview on all of us. At Pink Triangle Press, we continue to fight the fight with the work of our committed journalists at Extra and beyond. But it's also clear, as we expand our focus into advocacy with and for our community, that there's a need to push back against fearful public narratives, to create space to celebrate good and positivity in the community, and to share that with the world. And our response in pushing back with positivity against hateful rhetoric is here tonight, the Pink Awards. This is our space for celebrating queer achievement and queer joy.
The queer achievement that was celebrated was twofold. First was that of the champion, an individual in the community who, through good works, uplifted the community. This year it was writer, producer, actor Elliot Page, musician-composer Jeremy Dutcher, activist LaToya Nugent, athlete Marie-Philippe Poulin, and musician-composer Rufus Wainwright. Each of our champions chose a charity who spoke personally to their concerns and were also doing good, uplifting work in making change both for and in the community. As Priyanka so delicately explained, the Changemakers were awarded cash and also exposure via social media and this very podcast series. Coming episodes will focus on each of those champions and their chosen Changemakers. It's hard to find the words to describe the night. Heaton Dyer, who was the chief growth officer at PTP, sent an email the next morning talking about how movements are made from moments, and the event had been a movement-making moment made up of a series of exquisite moments. And it's very important to note the date. November 7th, 2024. Just 2 days after the November 5th American election that had seen 77 million Americans vote for a leader who clearly did not support the interests of the marginalized and whose party targeted the most vulnerable in our community as scapegoats in a battle of fear-mongering, disguising a class war as a gender war. And perhaps naively, many of us did not see it coming. We chose to dream that hope, that kindness, that change was the clear option, and as a result, we were shell-shocked. That was very much the underlying feeling in the room that night. For the majority there, it was the first time we had gathered as a community since the 5th. But so often, it is in these moments of defeat that we lift our eyes and see our community. Our crushing disappointment framed those moments that Heaton referenced, Elliot's moving speech to the Alberta-based trans right organization Skipping Stone, Jeremy's celebration of two-spirited people of the First Nation, LaToya embracing the literal pay-it-forwardness of the event in her speech, and Rufus singing his anthemic, broken-hearted, Going to a Town for the first time since the election.
I'm going to a town that has already been burnt down. I'm going to a place that has already been disgraced. I'm gonna see some folks who have already been let down. I'm so tired of America.
We'll revisit that indelible, heartbreaking moment in Rufus's episode. That's the thing about queer joy. It's made up of many things, including healthy doses of heartbreak and protest. More on that after this.
The 2024 PTP Pink Awards was made possible by the generous support of our sponsors, and we are deeply grateful for the generosity of our title sponsor, Decium, the Abnormal Beauty Company. Thanks to Sarah Frumstein and the entire Decium team.
Hi, this is Queer Joy, the PTP Pink Awards 2024, and I'm Daniel McIver. As we touched on before the break, if we're going to talk about Queer Joy, we're going to talk about heartbreak and protest. The people at Pink Triangle Press understand that notion well, having reported and activated through the first wave of queer liberation in the 1970s, amid the devastation of the beginning of the AIDS crisis in the 80s and 90s, pushing forward the fight for marriage equality through the 2010s, and now facing this clawing back of rights we are seeing in the current rise of conservatism. These are the moments that make our community. And as queer people, we understand that joy is earned and complex, comprised of tears and laughter and kindness and fight, and first and foremost found in community. And community was the central feeling at the Pink Awards in November. The name of this episode is Genesis, which reflects the fact that 2024 was the inaugural event, and so we've been talking about how we got here, and key to getting here has been sponsorship. Pink Award sponsorship is expressed in group table sales, individuals bidding in the silent auction, media sponsorships, award sponsorships by corporations. But the first step toward actualizing the Pink Awards was in acquiring a title sponsor. And the organization who came on early and enthusiastically, without whom the event would never have happened, was the beauty company Deciem. This is Sarah Fromstein, Deciem's Director of Belonging and Social Impact, speaking that night at the awards.
It is my pleasure to be here on behalf of Deciem. The Abnormal Beauty Company might know us as The Ordinary Skincare, but we have a very distinct history with why we're here today. A few years ago, we lost our founder, Brandon Truax, to mental illness as a result of him feeling like he did not have a place where he could belong. He spent his life trying to perform and be somebody that he never felt he could be. And as a result, we lost him. And today we are here for Brandon. We are here for all of you. We are here for our communities. And more than ever, to say, F you to anyone that is going to continue to get in our way of advancing our queer agenda.
Sarah's presence on stage at the awards very clearly spoke to a new idea of corporate sponsorship. In her sleeveless pink gown and proudly displayed tattoos, her presence was at once elegant and queer, and her message was heartfelt and personal. After the awards, I spoke with Sarah at her office in Toronto and asked her about the Deciem difference in their relationship to their advocacy work. Trying to find a way to work inside advocacy in the corporate world, trying to bring those things together, I feel it's very challenging. What do we need to do? I'm not asking you to call out anybody else's practice. What is it that we're missing? What is it that we need to do to get past doing something so it looks good, so it's good on a report?
Yeah, I think for Deciem, this goes far beyond any kind of DE&I initiative. This goes beyond anything that we want to do to make sure that we have beautiful reports that we can put out into the world. Those things should really be the afterthought because you're doing the good work. Our story at Deciem is also one that is quite unique. We are a Canadian organization that was founded just over 11 years, so almost 12 years ago now, here in Toronto. So Treaty 13 land where we occupy. And one of the things that our founder, Brandon Truax, wanted to create was a community for people to come together. And for him, it was his chosen family. Brandon had spent his life in the closet. Brandon had spent his life hiding who he was. He actually changed his name from his birth name to have more Anglo name so that he could succeed in the business world. Devastatingly, we lost Brandon to mental illness a few years ago. And as much as he disrupted the beauty industry, we owe it to him to continue on his legacy and disrupt these power dynamics that are at play that are causing people to feel like they have to hide who they are.
So what I'm hearing is it's personal. It's about finding the personal in the work. Yeah, sure, it's capitalism. That's a system. We don't necessarily have to identify as capitalists, but that's the system we're in. We work in it, and this is what we do. It's profit-driven. The personal doesn't have to eliminate profit.
Yeah, I think, again, our situation isn't one that corporations typically go through. A lot of this was born directly from the grief process. I report directly into our co-founder, Nicola Kilner, who is also Brandon's best friend and started this organization with him. And so she was grieving and had to step into the role as CEO and co-founder. So a very unique journey had to take place there, where she was grieving the loss of her best friend, but also having to step into his shoes as he was acting as CEO, and it was something she had never wanted to do. And I think putting those two together, it made her realize that there's a real lack of kindness and empathy in leaders. Kindness and success can go hand in hand. And we've seen it, I think, for the last 4 years especially. There's been an overwhelming amount of business success because of kindness and empathetic leaders. To your point, it's a capitalist system. If we've got to be in it, how do we make it as inclusive as possible so that everyone gets to participate in what comes from that? Because that's the big barrier, and people are just going to keep trying to fight to keep others out. We need to make sure that we're calling them into the conversation as much as possible, and everyone gets to benefit from this system that we can't escape.
I love what you said in your speech about the queer agenda. I know you were being cheeky, but I love the idea of it. It makes me think about how queerness in the broadest sense is about breaking the pattern, to queer the conversation, as PTP puts it. And I feel like that's the thing the mainstream really needs to embrace, to break the pattern, to queer it.
Yeah, I love how you put that, to queer it. And I think that's exactly what needs to take place. To be queer, it takes a lot, and I'd love to see a day when it doesn't have to, but it takes a lot of courage, and you go through a lot of hardships to be able to really lean into who you are as a full person. That's kind of what I look at with the queer agenda. I also see it as, we kept saying that night, queer joy. There is so much to celebrate and so much to continue to celebrate as we wave our flags and continue to be proud of who we are. And I think that that's a big piece of that agenda as well. So let's do it and spread it as much as possible. Let's make that our agenda, to spread joy and kindness.
Well, what we've been talking about here on Queer Joy is that our joy is also made up of heartbreak and protest.
I love that. You just gave me full body chills, actually, with that analogy to like the two. They go hand in hand, and we see jokes all the time about like my trauma made me funny, but it's like my trauma also gave me my joy. It gave me the ability to see the light, as Rufus would so beautifully say too.
To see the light. And as they say, without the darkness, there is none. Without heartbreak, how can we know joy? Without protest, how can we know celebration? And it seems to me Decium's success as a business and as an employer comes down to, as Sarah puts it, the fact that they grew the company from grief. Founded by a dreamer born as Ali Roshan, who became a complicated man called Brendan Turox, who pushed back brilliantly against the beauty business but could never find his sense of belonging in his own life. And then heartbreak. And then protest, dropping F-bombs in a pink gown while sponsoring an event that celebrates queer achievement in an uncertain, fearful world. Literally creating from heartbreak and protest queer joy. Thank you, Decium, for your foundational support in realizing the Pink Awards. Thank you for being a light under the door. We'll be talking more about the light under the door in episode 2. Please join us for Elliot Page and Skipping Stone. Thanks to our presenting sponsor, Decium, the Abnormal Beauty Company, along with category award sponsor BMO and media sponsors iHeartRadio, The Globe and Mail, and Everything Podcasts, and to our publicists, Rocket Promotions. I'm Daniel McIver. Thanks for listening. Queer Joy is a production of Pink Triangle Press.